All right, and we're live. All right, good evening, everybody. It's 7:09. It's a little bit later than we wanted to start, but we got to talking about user group stuff, and we all like that topic anyway. So I'm Tim McAlilly. Welcome to the Mobile First, Cloud First User Group of DC. Tonight we're in the fourth part of a five-part series on Office 365 adoption, so we're going to jump right into that momentarily. Slowly click my slides. So we are around kind of almost like the back end of the last lap here with the commit resources and execute adoption plan engagement part of the FastTrack framework. And then at the end of June, we're going to do the measure part. You know, how do you measure? How can you tell if your adoption processes were successful? Are there success stories you can share? Are there success stories and successful processes that you can repeat? So we've really appreciated having Stefani Butler here to kind of talk us through this, as well as the support from Brainstorm. In July, we're going to have a two-part series taught by Justin Harris, and he's going to talk about Office 365 groups. We're going to provide those as a live webinar, and of course everything will be recorded. Tonight's slides will be posted up on meetup.com in our files area for the Mobile First Cloud First site. And please remember, you can go and watch any of this content on YouTube. Tonight's recording, if everything goes well and I don't make any big flubs, I'll have it posted by 9 p.m. tonight for you to watch it anytime you want. Also, we're wrapping up another series on leveraging the cloud for project management, using Project Online as an example. We'll wrap that up on the topic of resource management on July 13th. In October, notice it's on a Friday, not on a Saturday, we are doing our IT Pro Camp Cloud Summit. That's going to be a big event. We're going to have over 50 sessions, 9 great technical tracks. We don't know specifically what the technical tracks are. We'll have to see what the call for speakers submissions return, but we're hoping for strong Azure tracks, Windows 10 track, mobility track, Office 365 adoption and deployment track, and an information security track, DevOps, those kind of things. So if you haven't taken a look or registered, go ahead and do that. It's on the Meetup page for Mobile First, Cloud First. Now, before we begin with our presentation from Stefani Butler, by the way, this is the Mobile First Cloud First site. And hopefully you found out about this session through this page, but this is where we post all of our new information, and this is where you can also hop off to our YouTube channel. So make sure you go out and check that out. So let me go ahead. What we've been doing for the past couple of sessions is talking about different workloads for Office 365 and using them as just little small, short demonstrations, because a lot of companies, when they look at Office 365 in its totality, there's the big workloads. There's Exchange, there's SharePoint. They might be doing Skype for business. They might be doing Yammer or OneDrive for business. Those are pretty big workloads. But what about some of the other little cool productivity workloads or applications? In addition to the big ones, how do you get the small workloads out there? And that's where FastTrack comes in. It really provides a solid framework for getting these workloads deployed, and in a way that's repeatable. And you can, in the biggest benefit of this is when you work with a customer, if they learn the FastTrack framework, if you champion the FastTrack framework, you can have a project management template for getting these workloads out, because some people get overwhelmed. You know, how do we get this out there? So a couple of weeks ago, we did one on OneNote and how you can integrate OneNote into Outlook. And if you have a meeting, you can generate meeting notes. And from the Outlook meeting, OneNote pulls in all the meeting attendees. You can create notes about the meeting, share those notes out, and it's a nice way to track who attended the meeting, what took place, and if there's any tasks coming out of that. Last meeting, we talked about Sway, which is an online presentation or cloud-based presentation system it's a distant cousin, if you will, of PowerPoint. You can import PowerPoint content into Sway, but Sway really takes it to a whole new level with being able to integrate tweets and pictures and video, some really neat stuff. There's also Office Mix that is also a really neat way to present information. We'll talk about that maybe next week or maybe next month. But tonight I just want to show you real quick one of the workloads that we use internally at Microsoft, and it's called Delve. There's a couple ways you can get to Delve. If you're on your Office 365 landing page for yourself, and if your tenant administrator has enabled Delve, you can get to it from, I'll say I run my mouth. Oh, you can get to it from here. I call this the picnic blanket because it looks like a picnic blanket. I'm sure that's not what it's called. Forget that I said picnic blanket. It just makes sense to me. Or you can get to it here through the apps that have been enabled by your tenant administrator. I'll just pick either one. And what Delve does, it indexes the content that you interact with on your Office 365 tenant. And hopefully this will come up for me without any issues. And it's saying page loading slowly. Well, you got that right. Hopefully it'll load faster. I'll click around a little bit because I was messing around here earlier to kind of get a demo teed up. Okay, well I'll start right here and I'll click off of this reminder that says page loading slowly. Now notice a couple things. It gives me your basic landing page for your SharePoint site, my site, my name, phone number, all that kind of good stuff. And then it kind of has brought up some documents that I've interacted with recently. And it'll give me a further list of documents that I've a little bit deeper reach back into documents that I've been working with. It'll give me the org chart. See how far I am from Satya Nadella? I'm way, 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 way down here. Anyway, that's by no means humbling, right? Praise. Praise is a new feature. It's not that I don't have friends at work, and they do seem to like me. So I'm sure praise will be coming in soon. But this is a feature that I'm not too familiar with, but it's a way for you to do kudos to your coworkers and your peers. And we've switched over at Microsoft from an internal thing called kudos to praise. Now, here's one thing that you might find interesting. There is a feature in Delve called Delve Analytics. Oh, excuse me. One more thing. You can also favorite your documents. And if you do favorites, let's say team directory, and we'll just do these two documents. They'll show up in your favorites, something that you're constantly working on, something you want to get to quickly that you want to interact with fairly quick. This does have mobile access capability. There's a Delve mobile app. Now the analytics piece is interesting because what the analytics will do, and I haven't used this a lot, it'll take a look at how you've used your time. Uh-oh. It'll tell you how you've used your time. It'll take a look at meeting hours, and this isn't really accurate. I don't know why it's not refreshing, but it takes a look at how much time in a given period that you spent in meetings, how much time you spent working on email, focus hours, after hours, and there's goals you can put in. So you want to say, I want to do less than 10 hours of being in a meeting. I can tell you right now that gets blown in like 2 days. Working on email, 10 hours. How about 15 hours? Seems like I do a lot of email. I do a lot of meetings. Focus hours. Focus hours is the pie in the sky concept that means you've got time to silently focus on the task at hand and contemplate next steps. So basically, this 40 hours is a unicorn snort. I mean, this is just, that doesn't happen. And then the after hours metric, I guess that just kind of shows you how hard you're working after hours. That's also not accurate because I do a lot of stuff after hours. And then collaboration. Colleagues you spent the most time with. Let me open that up a little bit. So these are some folks, some coworkers of mine that I've interacted with recently via email, an IM, Skype call. Who am I talking to? Who am I interacting with? Like my coworker, my immediate coworker is my account executive on my account teams, and then some other folks that I work with. So that's kind of interesting. And then my manager, it shows collaboration metrics around how much I'm working with my manager. Um, and here's something. Please tell me you guys are all seeing this. Uh, your response time, which is my response time to my manager. How long does it take me? And then how long does it take my manager to respond to me? How many one-on-one meetings we've had, and the email read rate. I don't know if that's his email that he's reading to me, or me reading his email, or him reading my email. Maybe it's a combination of both. Tell me if you're creeped out. Email hours and email habits. This is actually not creeped out. This is amazing technology, to be honest with you. Email habits, sent to individuals, sending to groups, being sent to me, being sent to a group that I'm reading, others replying to me, reply to others in emails. And then it breaks down my focus hours, how much time I had to focus. So this is a pretty powerful tool. This can it's almost like a Fitbit for your work life. You know, what are you doing at work? How are you breaking your day down? Now, I mentioned that this is something to think about when you're doing your deployment, your Office 365 deployment. I know of an organization that deployed Delve and Delve Analytics without taking a look at the full set of capabilities, the full reach of something like this. And remember, Delve is indexing content. So what happened was the customer enabled Delve and without any governance around it, and they did it across the enterprise. So what do you think might have happened? They went ahead and exposed documents that didn't need to be exposed and had to roll Delve back quickly because things that were internally sensitive were kind of sticking out there for other folks to see. So it's an awesome technology, but without a framework like FastTrack, where you're thinking through champions, where you're thinking through stakeholders, where you're thinking through key IT staff, key deployment staff to help you roll this out, you can kind of turn the knob up too much and deploy it. I won't say incorrectly, but deploy it without thinking through the protections that need to be afforded.
Tam, there's a question on this.
Oh yeah, George, I see.
Is this data all based on Office telemetry?
Yes. Telemetry that's generated off of the documents and interaction with the Office 365 infrastructure, with cloud-based Exchange mailboxes, with SharePoint documents or cloud-based SharePoint documents, with Skype interactions, with Yammer interactions, with OneDrive for Business interaction. That's just taking a look at all that data going across and presenting that as a metrics dashboard to show you, how are you interacting with this. Now, does this show you what happens if you take offline phone calls on your cell phone? Nope. It's all based on things that are hooked into and touching Office 365. What if the boss is spending too much time with the well, it'll show up on his or her, right? It'll show up on his or her Delve portal that they're spending too much focus time. All right. So, Stephanie, Desiree, do you have anything on that, or do you want me to kind of flip it over to Stephanie?
I'll probably expound just a tiny bit when I kick off my section, but I think we're ready to hear about Brainstorm.
All right. I have you made. You're a presenter, so take it away.
All right. Request control. I'm a big fan of Delve, so you actually showed me some things that I hadn't dove into yet. Pun intended.
I got it.
So just let me know when you can see my content, and then Desiree, it's your show.
Loud and clear.
Yeah, sounds good, everybody. If I can go ahead and have you advance to the next slide. Thank you so much. So as you guys are going to learn a couple things here tonight, for example, some of the things that you just learned even about Delve, you can imagine how it's actually very difficult for the end user to kind of find new features and functionality and kind of find their way. And that's where Brainstorm comes in. And how we typically engage with customers is kind of around two different moments of need. The first is around a deployment, and you can see here there's a dip in productivity that's traditionally associated with the deployment of new software. And so we partner with organizations to help minimize that dip in productivity. We're an end user training and adoption company, and we specifically focus on that end user experience at organizations of all different sizes at different times within their deployment. Stephanie, if you could go ahead and advance. So you'll see, obviously, we help to mitigate that dip in productivity. And then one more time, Stephanie. Our goal beyond just a deployment tool, however, is as you look at Office 365 and there's continual updates that are happening, we want to partner with organizations ongoing. Reason being is we don't want your users just to get from point A to point B and use the new software in the exact same way. We want them to actually find new ways of work. Stephanie, one more time. And we want them to find new and meaningful ways to leverage their new environment. It's funny, oftentimes when we're doing training events, we'll have users in the room do a whoa or a wow moment, and they'll say, oh, but we can't do that. We don't have 2016 or Office 365. And surprisingly enough, most of the time, we'll actually be showing the user a feature that has been around since 2007. And then they really kind of are very upset. And so our goal is to help users not only get through a deployment, but help them also start to realize the full potential of a new investment in software. Next slide. What we have that's available to you folks as a part of this platform series is a program essentially where you can kind of test the waters, if you will, and become familiar with what it is that Brainstorm does and how we help organizations adopt new software. This program is actually a program that's funded by Microsoft, and it is available to all Office 365 customers, whether you're deploying any individual workload or Office 365 all up. It includes a lot of different components, everything from change management resources to on-demand video content and 25 to 35 instructor-led sessions a month. So there's a lot of functionality around kind of helping you prepare your users, helping the organization get ready for that change, and then really seeing them be able to kind of move the needle and start to adopt the software and work in new and meaningful ways. So if anyone who's attending here today is interested in learning more about the program and getting your organization enrolled, there's some contact information on here, and we can go ahead and set up a discussion to kind of talk about how is it that we go about training end users, how do we help from a change management perspective, and let your organization benefit from this program as well. I think that's it on the Brainstorm side, right, Stephanie?
I think so. Yeah, thanks, Ray.
Absolutely.
I would only one little thing about Brainstorm is that I'm working with them in a customer space, and I can't say enough good things. Or actually, the customer's actually using their trial program and wants to continue further and is incorporating Brainstorm into how they roll out adoption of Office 365. So, yay, Brainstorm.
Mm-hmm. Yay, Brainstorm. And as a partner who's partnering with Brainstorm with some clients, again, we can't sing their praises enough. So for those on the meeting and those watching via YouTube, make sure you definitely reach out to Desiree if you find yourself sort of in a rut with your launch and adoption strategy and really need to escalate your training and your training plans. Thank you, Desiree.
Absolutely.
Time check. So we saw Delve, and we've learned a little bit about Brainstorm. Today, I want to use the remainder of our time to talk about the engage stage of Office 365 adoption. At the engage stage, we're talking about committing resources and executing on the adoption plan that we reviewed last month. If you didn't have a chance to check out that session, please visit our YouTube site, and you'll see all the previous webinars listed there for your reference. A little bit, we did introductions already. Just a quick little bit about me for those who are new to the webinar. My name is Stefani Butler. I have about 17 years combined experience in corporate communications, human resources, and change management that I think are pretty beneficial to the conversations I have with customers about adoption with Office 365. I am a former Microsoft Office 365 and Yammer customer success manager, so these conversations are critical to my day-to-day even now as I lead my own practice. Something new, I'm a motorcycle rider and a motorcycle lover, which we do have a female bikers group here in my town, and so that's one of my pastimes. And finally, I love to travel, but I hate to fly. But I just do it anyway because there's so much world to see. I do lead an adoption and change management practice called the Plat4orm Group, and there's a quick snapshot of some of the things that we bring into your Office 365, Azure, and EMS journey. There's our contact information. Feel free to visit our website for more information on how we can be of help to you. Quickly, up until now, we have covered 4 stages that Microsoft considers the stages for in a successful adoption approach. A couple of months ago, we talked about setting a vision and identifying those business scenarios. Last month, we talked about prioritizing the solutions or the use cases that support that scenario, and then creating an adoption plan, that plan that becomes your roadmap for your Office 365 journey. Today, we're going to talk about Phase 3 there, committing resources and executing on that adoption plan to help drive adoption and create awareness and interest. And then next month, our final webinar, we'll talk about measuring successes and adjusting and iterating on what was working and what needs to be improved. So as you can see, we're here today. You're here at Committing Resources. We're going to cover a few things like communications, engagement events, training opportunities that supplement what Desiree just shared from an in-house standpoint as opposed to reaching outside, and really showing you how to enable yourselves and your teams to execute a successful launch and adoption strategy. So what do we mean by commit resources? Again, we talked last month about developing an adoption plan. And part of that adoption plan included creating that project team. And I put a snapshot here of the various roles that are typically a part of that project team. As you can see here, you've got typically a project manager who keeps the people on project and on task, an executive sponsor who blesses the initiative from the top and really lets people know, hey, not only is this okay to be a part of, but this is a part of our vision, something we're committed and dedicated to as an organization, and we want to invite you into that process to be a part of it and help us craft it in many ways. The business owner, that's the person who really takes the lead and from an operational standpoint and provides that guidance and approval and helps you move through the project timeline in an efficient way. Champions, those are your evangelists. Those are the folks who have influence across the organization or even just in their departments, but they're also the ones who are just really passionate about the technology and working easier in this new modern workplace environment that Microsoft has created with Office 365. Department leads, that's HR, that's corp comms, that's marketing, that's finance, engineering, R&D. Those are the folks that you really want to get on board early in the game because they're the ones who really not only can help you identify the biggest pain points and challenges that your teams are experiencing, but they're also the ones who oftentimes work with the business owners to approve ideas. The training lead, that's the person who helps develop your in-house training capability. They're the ones who are going to help manage and communicate that training, and deliver not only launch and launch training, but sustainable training throughout the life cycle of your Office 365 experience. Community managers, they're the ones who really take to your social channels. Microsoft obviously has Yammer in the Office 365 stack, but if for some reason you do have an alternative social channel in-house like that, like Jive or Chatter, this person can still be effective with the other workloads of Office 365 that you're launching by centralizing the collaboration and communication into those social channels as the key place to execute on that adoption plan. And then finally, you may have a SharePoint site manager. That's the person who really just helps manage SharePoint. If you decide to collaborate within that environment, much like the community manager in their social environment, this person helps keep the business documents and process alive in your team site.
Hey, Steph, I have a question, if you don't mind. So this would be an example of a well-built execution team. I have awareness of organizations that don't do this at all, and they sort of dump it off on one person or don't plan out an execution team. What would you say about that? That's a recipe for failure, isn't it not?
It is. It absolutely is a recipe for failure, Tim, because what typically happens is instead of having this project team in place, and as you can see from the roles, this team is diverse in different roles across the business, from technical roles to non-technical roles, and to even all the way up to the C-suite with the executive. When people don't implement all these relevant voices into their implementation strategy, they tend to rely and position themselves as just IT stakeholders, right? And then the business begins to look at Office 365 not as a business tool, but as just another IT tool. And in turn, IT will begin to deploy and execute in traditional ways. And so I think it's really a huge missed opportunity to put this type of team in place early on, so that you've captured the many voices across the business that are going to be benefiting from Office 365.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I can't stress this team enough. And so at this stage in the journey, you've already put this team together in phase one, hopefully. Now it's time to unleash that execution team. And as you see here, there are going to be some resources like the project manager, the business owner, or the exec sponsor who are going to be working behind the scenes on some of the technical pieces. But the folks who are really going to help with this phase, which is sort of to execute on the adoption plan and create the awareness about it, are typically one of your department leads, like communications, the communications lead, your training lead, your community managers, and your champions, or also known as evangelists. Those are the folks who are really making the magic happen as you execute on your adoption plan. Now, what exactly does that magic look like? Well, it's a mix of different activities that not only increase impact, but also have the advantage of increasing the probability of your end users adopting a technology in ways that are relevant to them. The three ways that Microsoft recommends, and I'm a huge fan of this particular phase because it's my bailiwick. They recommend, having internal communications and announcements as a part of your launch and adoption strategy, making engagement events where people actually get together and in person or remote. It doesn't really matter. It could be parties, town halls, contests, giveaways, what have you. This is where you're starting to create not only just hype, empty hype, but actually weighty hype, because they're engagement events that actually give people the opportunity to get their hands on the solutions that are soon to be coming to them or may have already been deployed to them. The third way to maximize those results of awareness and understanding, again, is the training piece. And that's why, those of us who've worked with Brainstorm are such big fans of Brainstorm, is because they already have a very bespoke training environment and solution that's designed to help not only with your quick launch or your immediate launch, but on your long-term sustainable training strategy. But if you can't afford a brainstorm, Microsoft has made this information available to you for free in the resources section on FastTrack. And we'll get to some of that here in a little bit. But these are the 3 areas that really help you execute on that adoption plan. And you're probably seeing something. You're seeing that none of this is IT related. That's the missing piece. Oftentimes, people inside an enterprise think of Office 365 as just another IT initiative. But as you see here, when Microsoft says it's time to execute on the adoption plan, a bulk of it is happening with the front end that's visible to the end users through communications, engagement events, and training. So what do some of those things look like? I'm going to slip this slide. I kind of talked about it a little bit in that last slide. So let's start with awareness and communications. What does that look like? Well, you can see here on the screen, Microsoft has already created this collateral for you. And so your communications lead, your training lead, maybe you've got someone in HR, depending on the size of your organization. They don't have to recreate the wheel to create that awareness and to nurture that education. They can access this content for free on the FastTrack site, and I'll show you where that is towards the end of the session. But as you can see, what does that entail? How do we nurture awareness in our communications? Through posters and flyers, through countdown emails and announcement emails. All of this information is just customizable and you can rebrand it with your own logos and ready for you to begin to push out to your end users. Now, we also have, I'm actually going off my deck because I want to show you, for those of you who didn't see from one of the earlier webinars, I want to show you why these become so critically valuable. This is sort of a sample of an end-to-end adoption project plan. Could be less, could be more. But as you can see here, there's guidance in the communications and training section here on this line item that tells you what to be doing when and why and with what, right? So we just saw that slide about posters and flyers and countdown emails or what have you. Again, the guidance is already fully baked for you in the information that FastTrack provides to you. So it should be something that if you're an IT stakeholder and you go to your corp comms or your HR, or your training lead and sort of have this conversation, evangelize Office 365 with them and get them on board and just say, you know what, I can make your job easier. You don't even have to create this stuff. It's already ready for you. And here's how. I'm going to go back to my slide. I just wanted to pause. Go ahead, Tim.
That plan activities slide that you're showing was really important to one of my customers because you can really see just a general guideline for what pre-launch and post-launch activities would look like within a time box, rather than have it be this kind of, vague push out, over the next couple of months, quote unquote. But this really kind of helps them see it. And that's all tweakable, of course, but it helps them really kind of look at it from a calendar perspective within the context of the FastTrack framework phases.
Exactly. And if you're the kind of person who doesn't view content in that fashion, this is the adoption plan that we reviewed last week. It's the same information that we just saw in that end-to-end project plan, but it's in Word format. So this is also manipulatable, making that word up today, from week 1 all the way to week 12. It's giving you the step-by-step direction on who's responsible for what and why as it relates to the execution on that adoption plan. And Microsoft even goes a step further and gives you links to the templates that help you with each stage of that plan. So I just when people say it's so hard, they don't know how to get started, I'm an advocate of helping them understand how they can get closer to these type of resources to make that easier for them. Additional awareness and communication options that I've personally seen some of my customers leverage: highlights and teasers. These are used to generate buzz, lead with some video vignettes. Maybe you had a pilot group who initially tested Office 365 and saw some success with it, and they shared a testimonial. Hey, capture that in print or capture a small video vignette if you've got an in-house video team, and start pushing that content on your intranet site so that people can see that it's coming, and here's the value, here's the what's in it for me from another end user who shares the value they found. First touch events or work easier events that give people hands-on experience with maybe a smaller set of the technology or the entire ecosystem, whatever you have time for. But those first touch events are great opportunities to not only create awareness and hype, but also to nurture early champions and evangelists. And then no communications campaign is really effective, in my opinion, if you don't have really cool swag to give away to people. So Microsoft has a site that you can click through, and it's all on the FastTrack site. I'll show you, and just order some of that swag or those giveaways to give to your folks at these type of events. This is an example of one of those events. You can read about this on the Office 365 network. It's a Yammer group, a Yammer network. And I'll make sure that when Tim sends the information out, I have a link to that network for you to sign up. It's full of information about setting up these work easier events and just getting a better grasp of Office 365 and executing on adoption plans. So I wanted to give you an example of what one of those events looked like. A customer, Regis, set up sort of a, excuse me, this must be timed. My apologies. Don't want to go there yet. Set up an event, a work easier sort of high touch event, and those were the sessions they had. And notice they don't talk about the technology. They talk about the what's in it for me, the value to the end user, like work like a network. Work like a network. Note to self, which is about OneNote. Your files anywhere, which is about OneDrive. On the go, which is about the mobile connectivity to Office 365. So these are the type of things that you can leverage as a part of your awareness and communications campaign. Next, we're going to evolve and move on to end user training. Again, if you're not working with a partner like Brainstorm and you're building this in-house, here's some of the things that you should take into consideration when you're building your training program. 1, who are you training? Okay. 2, what is their role in the organization, and what are some of the tasks they perform? Where do users perform these tasks? Is it on mobile devices? Is it at their workstations? Are they knowledge workers or are they field workers? Where do users perform these tasks? When do users perform these tasks? Is it, do you have multiple shifts? Do you have just one shift? Do you have folks who work overtime in the evenings? When are people performing these tasks? When do they need access to these tools? And then when should training be completed? And then finally, how integrated is the tool set in day-to-day activities? I like to think back to Delve that Tim led off with earlier in the call, because Delve is an example of the type of solution, although it's not Yammer, Exchange, OneDrive, OneNote. It's the what I call the repository for the output for all of that information. And so when I think about how I begin to train someone or a team about Delve, a lot of these questions come into mind. How can I make their jobs easier by them using Delve? And so when I'm thinking about a training strategy for Delve, for example, I'm going to ask myself these questions. If you're a field worker or someone who's out in the field all day long, maybe you're a delivery driver or you're a nurse running errands, what have you, how can I help you understand the value of Delve to get you closer to information that helps you do your job easier, right on your mobile device or at your workstation? So those are key questions to keep in mind when you're developing your end user training. And then here are some tips to help demonstrate the benefits of that training. One, obviously, lead with the benefit. When you're communicating about your training, make sure that you explain what the specific work will look like with Office 365 and what type of efficiencies they can expect. Use real work scenarios. This is where in the last month, when we talked about last month about identifying vision, business scenarios, and then solutions, also known as use cases, that's the phase where you identified real work scenarios. Because I don't know about you, but if you launch a solution that doesn't really relate to me in the way that I work, I'm less prone to adopt it. I don't see the value. But if you've done your due diligence to create real work scenarios that you then message as a part of your launch and adoption strategy and your training strategy, then I'm more apt to adopt the technology in the way it's intended to be used. Absolutely include a governance model, right? Tim mentioned the lack of some governance around the customer who launched Delve and sort of the uncomfortable position it put them in. Governance is important. Boundaries are okay because, again, it gives people very intentional ways on how ways to use the technology in the way your organization wants it to be used. Create a learning center. Learning does not happen in just one day. It doesn't happen in 3 days. It's an ongoing process. And so creating a learning center that they can access and self-service at any time is a wonderful best practice when it comes to creating your training plan. And finally, mobilize your champions. Call on your network, those evangelists. Make them your VIPs of this Office 365 implementation. Invite them to your training sessions. Help them, have them help you craft your training curricula. Leverage the folks who are at the front line of really heralding the benefits of Office 365 to their peers. When you think about going past that sort of initial launch, here are some resources that Microsoft FastTrack has made available to you. I love these tips and trick emails, and I customize the heck out of these things when I'm helping with communication plans. They're so the UI is beautiful. You just put your own logo in there. You tweak a little bit of the language, the contact information, and then you push that bad boy out. And I mean, it just really does an excellent job of increasing the depth and the breadth, like you see here, of awareness and education, which leads to increased usage and adoption of the technology. Microsoft also makes available to you scenario training templates, and that's a big support too when you're building that training program that we talked about on the previous slide. You've got decks if you want to do lunch and learns, bring the training off of a portal and make it in live and in person. These decks are available to you. You just give this deck to somebody. It could be the training expert. It could be the admin, whomever. These decks are so specific, anyone could deliver this training. So leverage these training templates to help with the ongoing sustainability of your Office 365 implementation. I know Desiree mentioned about the Brainstorm Quick Start Guides. Microsoft has a few of these available to you as well on the FastTrack site. So that's always good news to sort of give people a quick glance on the capabilities, and then maybe they can start with a 1, 2, 3 and come back to your training learning center for the depth. And finally, as far as training is concerned, you can create your own sort of Office 365 Learning Center BOM, or you can use Microsoft's Office 365 Learning Center and just sort of embed that into your environment. But what you're seeing here on the last 3 slides is a commitment, actually the last 4 slides, maybe 5, a commitment to ensuring your end users have a long-term strategy on how to stay connected to Office 365, how to realize value in the technology on a long-term basis. It's not a one and done experience, not at all. It's the new way of working. It's working easier and working smarter and not harder. And I appreciate that Microsoft has made this information available to us. So when I think about what next steps look like before next month's webinar, I want you guys to visit the FastTrack resources site. I put images to the section I'm going to highlight to you. Let me just go there now. Okay. So when you come to FastTrack, you have the option here to pick one of these navigation tabs. I want you to click on resources here at the top. It's going to bring you to this page here, adoption methodology resources. And you'll see it's sectioned off into the various phases that we've covered so far. This is the first phase, define a vision. The second phase, prioritize solutions and create an adoption plan. And it gives you the resources right here that we talked about in each of those webinars. You can download them individually, or you can download all of them at the same time. The one I want you to come to before next month is this one here on the bottom left, the commit resources and execute an adoption plan. And what I'd like you to do, if I go back, is I want you to download all of those resources in the commit resources and adoption plan section. You could do them all one by one or download them all at the same time. Then I want you to kind of get risky and then invite your communications, your HR, or your training buddies to lunch or to coffee. Tell them you have something that will make their job so much easier as it relates to your company's Office 365 implementation. And then work with one of them, whichever one is willing, before next month to just build out a simple communications or training strategy that use the resources that you downloaded on that site. If it's just one focused on a department, if it's focused on a specific business unit, if it's focused on a specific initiative, pick one. But I want you to reach out to those stakeholders. And if you sit in IT, that might be uncomfortable, but trust me, they'll love you. And if you sit in the business, reach out to your IT folks and let them know you're already on top of beginning to create that awareness and that communications and that engagement around Office 365 as a part of their adoption plan. And then if you have questions while you're doing that, we'd love for you to share your learnings with the rest of the meetup group, either on the meetup page or using our Twitter hashtag MFCF_DC_Office 365. When you have that, when you ask that question, people will absolutely love having that conversation. So with that, that really concludes the engage stage. As you can see, it's not an IT conversation in phase 3. It really is a conversation about how do we message this amazing new way of working to our organization in a sticky, sustainable, simple, and easy to adopt way, in a way that they find value.
Agreed. Well, what an excellent session, Stephanie, and it really resonates with me personally, and it's just absolutely a key cog in a successful Office 365 adoption strategy. I got some questions here. There's a couple flaky components to the actual content on the FastTrack page around the BOM doesn't have 2016 products in it, and then there's a little, looks like a little bug. But I'll send that off to the internal Office 365 group and say, hey guys, fix this. But
yeah, thank you.
But I've still been able to download all that stuff, George, and then tweak it a little bit and get it to customers to kind of step them through it.
I just can't reiterate enough. This phase is probably the most critical of them all. I mean, I know they're all important. Obviously, you don't get to this phase unless you have a vision, unless you have scenarios and use cases, and obviously unless you have an adoption plan. But sometimes those steps can happen, and then people drop the ball on this one. People drop the ball on creating that awareness through effective communications and engagement and training. So I can't stress enough the importance of this phase. And I'm absolutely here. The folks on the call, Tim, myself, Nakia, and Desiree, we're here as resources to help you along that journey. So please reach out to us using those channels we mentioned.
Absolutely. So George, let's see, we still have George and BC's on the phone, on the line. Hey, BC and George, and how's it going?
Hi.
Thought I'd say hi to you. Thought I'd call you out.
Thank you.
So BC's part of the both BC and Karen and also George are all part of the DC user group community. Good people. Do you guys have any questions for Stephanie or Desiree? I think we wanted to get Desiree's contact information. If we could scroll back to that, if we.
Absolutely.
Thanks. And those training resources, those templates that Brainstorm has, huge to be able to pass around at a customer site. And then it's also really nice to be able to go out to the FastTrack site and get our own internal cards down too, just so you can have something for customers.
Let's make this a better color. There we go. And let's blow this up again. That way we can see it there. So there's Desiree's contact information. Yeah, you guys want to take advantage of this quick help program. Trust us.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all right. I'm glad we stuck it out because we contemplated, lower crowd. Now, for the folks on the phone, we're going to try something next week. And Stephanie, I'm sorry I cut you off. I'm realizing I cut you off and then I kept talking. I apologize.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. So what we're talking about as the call started, we're not recording and we're being informal. We might have this meeting, the June 29th. We might try to do it at 5, but Stephanie's on East Coast time. Or no, Stephanie's on Indianapolis time, or wherever your work might be taking you.
I'm on East Coast. We are still recording though, Tim.